Chapter 1. Dawn in the Animal Kingdom. The first light of the day crept gently across the horizon, like a shy painter brushing soft gold across the edges of a canvas. The sky above the Animal Kingdom, so dark and filled with stars only moments ago, began to blush with the faintest hues of pink and lavender. Slowly, the deep indigo of night thinned into a gentle blue, while the very first whispers of sunlight kissed the treetops of the great forest. A light mist hovered over the meadow, curling and drifting like little streams of smoke. Dewdrops clung to the grass, each one catching the faint light, making the field shimmer as though it was sprinkled with diamonds. The earth seemed to hold its breath in this quiet hour, in that magical moment between night and day when the world awakens without rush or noise. Somewhere in the distance, a single bird dared to break the silence. It was a robin. Its chest puffed proudly as it trilled a soft, liquid note. The sound rippled across the stillness, and then another bird joined, and another, until a chorus of feathered voices filled the morning air. The forest canopy stirred with gentle movement as the birds of the kingdom stretched their wings and greeted the new day. In a hollow oak near the forest's edge, a family of squirrels began to stir. The eldest, a russet-furred mother, peeked her head out of the hole, her whiskers twitching as she sniffed the crisp air. The scent of pine and damp earth reached her nose, mixed with the faint sweetness of wildflowers that was still closed from the cool night. Behind her, two young squirrels yawned widely, their tiny paws kneading the soft bedding of moss and leaves before clambering to the entrance. Farther down the slope, the river murmured softly to itself, carrying the memory of the mountains where it was born. Its waters, silver in the dawn, caught the rising light and scattered it into a dance of glimmers. Along its edge, a heron stood perfectly still, one long leg bent, its reflection rippling slightly on the water's surface. The bird's eyes scanned the shallows, patient and unhurried, for the tiny silver flashes of fish that would make its breakfast. On the far side of the river, where the meadow met the woods, a small family of deer emerged from the shadows of the trees. Their coats were rich and warm, speckled with dew where they brushed against wet leaves. The doe stepped first, ears flicking at every whisper of movement, followed by her delicate fawn, still learning the rhythm of the waking world. They paused to graze, lowering their heads to the soft grass, while a distant woodpecker began its gentle drumming on a hollow trunk. The air was filled with the scents and songs of morning. Wild mint and clover mingled with the earthy perfume of moss and pine needles. Bees, slow from the cool night, began to buzz lazily from flower to flower. Somewhere under the old roots of a beech tree, a family of hedgehogs peeked out of their den. The smallest one sneezed at the sudden brightness and tumbled over its sibling, making their mother nudge them back into a tidy little line. As the sun climbed higher, shafts of golden light pierced through the forest canopy. Dust motes drifted in those beams, tiny sparks in the soft air. A fox emerged from the ferns, its red coat catching the warm light like a living flame. It paused, nose twitching, before padding silently across the soft ground. It was not hunting now. This was the gentle hour, when hunger was quiet and the forest simply air-breathed. The animal kingdom at dawn was a world of balance. Each creature moved with quiet purpose, each sound soft and measured. Even the wind seemed to tiptoe, stirring the leaves without haste. Butterflies that had clung to flowers through the night slowly spread their wings to catch the warmth, the delicate patterns glowing in the morning light. By the river, the heron finally struck, its long neck darting into the water with a splash. A small fish shimmered in its beak, and with one graceful tilt of its head, the bird swallowed. It ruffled its feathers once, satisfied, and returned to its statue-like stillness. Not far away, in a clearing surrounded by tall grass, a family of rabbits hopped into the open. Their fur glistened with dew, and their noses wiggled as they sampled the morning air. A particularly curious young bunny bounded toward a cluster of dandelions, pouring at one until the soft white seeds burst into the breeze. The little orbs floated up, carrying wishes into the morning sky. High above, the first eagles of the day took to the air. Their wide wings caught the thermal currents rising from the warming earth. With almost no effort, they glided in slow circles, scanning the fields and hills below. Their cries were clear and far-reaching, echoing across the valleys like a song announcing that the kingdom was fully awake now. Yet even as the day grew brighter, the calm of dawn lingered. This was a place where time moved differently. Every detail, the glimmer of dew, the scent of pine, the soft hum of the river, wove together to create a blanket of peace. Here, in the heart of the animal kingdom, life unfolded without hurry, as it had for countless mornings before. And for those who listened closely, it felt as if the earth itself was singing, a song of gentle beginnings, of creatures big and small starting another day in harmony. Chapter 2: Morning in the Meadow. The sun had now risen a little higher, washing the kingdom in a gentle, honeyed light. The mist that had curled along the meadow's floor in the earliest hours of dawn was beginning to dissolve, its ghostly tendrils slipping away into the warming air. Each blade of grass stood straight and proud, crowned with tiny droplets of dew that sparkled like a million stars fallen from the night sky. The meadow was alive in a quiet, unhurried way. Its rhythm was slow and soft, as though the world itself was still stretching, yawning, and gently waking to another peaceful day. A breeze whispered over the fields, bending tall grasses in rolling waves that mimicked the motion of a faraway ocean. The gentle swaying brushed the fur of the rabbits hiding in the grass, tickling their ears and coaxing them to peek out from their secret tunnels. From one such burrow, a mother rabbit hopped into the light, her nose twitching furiously as she tested the air. It was clean and cool, carrying the earthy perfume of damp soil and wild clover. Behind her, 3 tiny kits tumbled out, their fur still rumpled from sleep. They followed clumsily, hopping in an even rhythm as they explored the wide, bright world of the morning meadow. A bumblebee buzzed lazily past, its body heavy with the early dew. It circled a cluster of purple clover blossoms, landing awkwardly and vanishing among the petals. The smallest rabbit froze, eyes wide, and then in a burst of bravery, hopped closer to investigate. The bee hummed around its nose, and the little kit flopped backward in surprise, sending a few droplets of dew flying. Elsewhere in the meadow, 2 deer grazed side by side. The older of the pair, a gentle doe, tore at the soft shoots with a steady rhythm, her long ears flicking now and then at the sounds of the morning. A younger buck, still small and slender, stood knee-by. His antlers were only beginning to form, little knobs of soft velvet that caught the sunlight as he lifted his head to watch the meadow. All around, life moved with calm intention. A grasshopper leapt from blade to blade, its green body blending perfectly with its surroundings. A field mouse scurried along a small dirt path, pausing now and then to sniff the air for seeds. Overhead, swallows darted and spun in the open sky, their wings catching the light as they chased tiny insects, moving like swift shadows that flickered in and out of the sun. The wind carried the scents of distant parts of the kingdom to the meadow dwellers, the cool mineral fragrance of the river, the sweet smell of wildflowers beginning to open, and the faint musky scent of fox fur somewhere far in the forest edge. But the fox, for now, had no business in the meadow. This hour belonged to the gentle creatures, the grazers and foragers, the ones who celebrated the sun with soft movements and cautious joy. Near the heart of the meadow stood an ancient oak, solitary and wise. Its branches spread wide, a shelter for birds and insects alike. A woodpecker perched along its trunk, tilting its head this way and that before tapping a gentle rhythm against the bark. The sound was like a distant drum, echoing softly in the meadow air. A family of bluebirds had made their home in a hollow branch, and now the parents busied themselves with the morning meal, fluttering in and out with insects caught on the wing. Beneath the oak's shade, a tortoise emerged from the thick grass. Its movements were slow, deliberate, as though each step was a decision carefully weighed. Dew clung to the ridges of its shell, and tiny insects scurried aside to let the small traveler pass. With each step, it pressed its weight into the soft earth, leaving behind gentle impressions that would disappear by midday. The meadow's pond, small and round as a polished mirror, reflected the brightening sky. Lily pads floated on its surface, and a single pink flower unfurled as the light reached it. Frogs rested along the edges, their skin glistening, and a dragonfly skimmed over the water like a living jewel, its wings flashing in shades of blue and green. A pair of ducks glided across the pond, leaving ripples that spread outward like the softest sighs. The mother duck quacked softly to her ducklings, who trailed behind her in a neat little line. One duckling fell behind to peck at a water bug, then paddled furiously to catch up, shaking tiny droplets from its downy head. As the morning stretched on, the meadow hummed with life. Bees crisscrossed the flowers, the warm buzz of their wings adding to the music of the place. The air itself seemed to shimmer as the sun lifted higher, yet the meadow remained a sanctuary of calm. In the far distance, a herd of wild horses moved through the tall grass. Their coats gleamed chestnut and black, manes tossing in the gentle wind. They walked in loose formation, some lowering their heads to graze, others lifting their faces to the breeze, sniffing the scents carried from beyond the horizon. One young foal pranced with unrestrained joy, circling its mother before galloping off in a short, jubilant burst of speed. Birdsong rose and fell like the tide. The meadowlarks were the most persistent, their voices rising in clear, liquid notes that seemed to stitch the sky to the earth. Each call echoed across the open space, and the little rabbits perked their ears toward the sound, momentarily pausing in their playful hops. Along the edge of the meadow, where wildflowers formed a riot of colors, butterflies emerged to claim the day. A monarch drifted lazily from one bright blossom to another, its wings catching the light with every slow, graceful beat. A smaller white butterfly joined it, and for a moment, they danced together on the breeze before parting ways as silently as they had met. Time in the meadow flowed like honey, thick and golden, unhurried. Every movement was part of an endless, gentle rhythm. The deer grazed. The rabbits explored. The bees and butterflies continued their quiet labor. And the sun climbed higher, warming the earth, promising another serene day in the animal kingdom. It was a world without urgency, a place where life unfolded in perfect harmony with the rising sun. Every creature, from the tiniest ant to the tallest horse, was part of the same peaceful story, a story written in rustling grass, gentle winds, and the quiet conversations of the meadow. Chapter 3: The River's Secret Life. The river wound through the animal kingdom like a long, silver ribbon, catching the light of the morning sun. From high above, it would have looked like a wandering thread, curving through forests, meadows, and glades before slipping out of sight behind distant hills. But here, on its banks, the river was a world of its own, a place where life moved to the rhythm of water, where time was measured not by clocks but by ripples, reflections, and the calls of creatures that made the river their home. The air was cooler near the water. A soft mist rose from its surface, curling and vanishing as the sun's warmth kissed it away. Tiny droplets clung to overhanging leaves and spiderwebs strung between reeds, making them glisten like strings of pearls. The sound of the river was a lullaby, a gentle, endless murmur, with splashes here and there where the current met a rock or the flick of a fish's tail broke the surface. On the wide bend where the water slowed to a lazy crawl, a family of otters stirred in their den along the muddy bank. The first to emerge was a sleek brown adult, shaking off bits of dirt and grass from its fur before sliding straight into the water. It barely made a sound, its body perfectly built for this quiet world. Seconds later, two playful pups followed, tumbling and rolling in the mud before plopping into the river after their parent. The otters darted and spun through the shallows, their movements quick but graceful. One pup dove beneath the surface, leaving only a trail of bubbles, while the other swam in wide, playful loops before climbing onto a smooth rock. There it sat, whiskers twitching, dripping water into the current below. The adult otter watched them with patient eyes, then disappeared under the water, only to reappear several feet away with a small fish wriggling in its mouth. The river was full of such quiet dramas. Beneath its sparkling surface, fish of all sizes swam in slow schools, their scales catching flickers of sunlight that pierced the water in shifting golden beams. Tiny minnows darted in and out of the reeds, while a larger carp glided past with the confidence of age, disturbing nothing as it moved. A great blue heron stood like a statue on the far bank, one leg lifted, head tilted toward the water. It had been there long before the otters awoke, and it would remain long after they tired of play. Its patience was a kind of mastery, the stillness of a creature that understood the language of the river. And then, with a flash of movement, its long neck shot forward and its beak pierced the water. A silver fish struggled for a moment in the sunlight before vanishing down the heron's throat. The banks of the river were alive with other creatures, too. A family of turtles basked on a half-submerged log, their dark shells glistening as they soaked in the warmth. One by one, they slid into the water, sending ripples outward in perfect circles, before paddling toward a shaded patch of reeds. Near them, a frog croaked lazily, puffing out its throat before leaping from the muddy edge into the cool shallows. A kingfisher perched on an overhanging branch, feathers flashing a brilliant blue against the green world around it. It watched the water below, head cocking from side to side, until finally a dove like an arrow, emerging with a glinting prize clasped in its beak. With a flick of its head, the fish disappeared, and the bird returned to its perch to wait for the next moment of opportunity. The river carried more than water, it carried stories. Fallen leaves drifted along its surface, spinning gently in eddies before continuing their quiet journey. A single feather floated past, left behind by some passing duck, spinning slowly as the current tugged it downstream. Even the shadows of clouds seemed to pause as they reflected on the surface, giving the illusion that the sky itself had stopped to rest here. From the forest edge, a red fox approached to drink. Its paws sank into the soft, damp soil of the riverbank, leaving delicate prints that would soon fade. It lowered its head cautiously, lapping at the cool water while its ears flicked in every direction. Somewhere upstream, a branch cracked under the weight of a squirrel leaping to another tree, and the fox paused for a moment, nose twitching. But this was a peaceful morning, and after a last sip, the fox retreated into the tall grass, leaving the river to its gentle song. The river's life was not only in its creatures, but in the sounds and movements that defined it. The quiet lap of water against smooth stones. The whisper of reeds swaying at the edge. The occasional splash of a fish rising to snatch an insect from the surface. Together, these sounds formed a kind of music, soft and timeless, a song that had played for centuries and would play for centuries more. Farther along the bend, a beaver emerged from its lodge. Its fur was slick from a night spent in the water, and its broad tail slapped the surface once before it set to work. With practiced determination, it collected small branches and reeds, carrying them to the lodge where its family rested. The beaver moved without hurry, every task part of a rhythm older than memory. As the sun climbed higher, beams of light struck the river at new angles, turning it into a ribbon of gold and silver. Dragonflies skimmed over the surface, their wings catching the light in flashes of emerald and sapphire. A water strider skated effortlessly across the still shallows, its shadow stretched and rippled below it. Even the smell of the river was soothing, fresh and earthy, carrying the scents of wet stone, sun-warmed reeds, and distant pine from the surrounding forest. When the wind shifted, it brought with it the sweet perfume of wildflowers blooming in the meadow nearby, mingling with the river's cooler fragrance in a way that felt like the purest breath of the earth itself. By midday, the river had become a place of shimmering stillness. The otters had disappeared into their den for a nap, the turtles had returned to their log to bask again, and the heron had taken flight, its wide wings lifting it in slow, graceful strokes. In its absence, the river felt like it had exhaled, settling into an even deeper calm. The river was never lonely. Even in silence, it was alive, cradling the lives of countless creatures and reflecting the endless sky above. For anyone resting on its banks, listening to its soft lullaby, time seemed to stretch and dissolve. The world beyond the water's edge might have been busy and full of movement, but here, in the secret life of the river, there was only peace. Chapter 4. Afternoon in the Forest. Deep in the heart of the animal kingdom, where the meadow gave way to clusters of ancient trees, the forest waited. It was a cathedral of green, its ceiling woven from branches and leaves, its walls formed by trunks that had stood for centuries. Here, the sunlight came not in a single blaze but in countless threads, streaming through gaps in the canopy to dance across the mossy floor. The forest at afternoon was a place of soft whispers and measured movements. While the meadow hummed with open-air energy and the river carried its gentle songs, the forest exhaled a different kind of peace, deep, grounding, and timeless. The first thing anyone might notice stepping into the forest would be the smell. It was a perfume born of earth and life, damp soil, decaying leaves, pine sap, and the faint sweetness of mushrooms hidden in the shadows. Breathing it in felt like drinking something old and pure, like the memory of rain. A shaft of sunlight lit a patch of ferns near a fallen log, turning their fronds into glowing green feathers. Beneath them, ants busied themselves in neat, unspoken order. They carried bits of leaves, pieces of bark, and sometimes food far heavier than themselves. Their silent caravan wound across the log, down into a gap in the soil, and disappeared into the heart of their hidden world. The log itself was a universe. Moss grew in thick, soft carpets along its length, and tiny mushrooms with delicate stems sprouted in its damp hollows. A beetle crawled slowly across the wood, pausing now and then to tap its antennae, sensing the invisible signals of the forest. Every crack in the bark seemed to pulse with life, spiders tucked in shadows, termites nibbling unseen, and millipedes curling silently along the damp grooves. Overhead, a squirrel bounded along the branches with the nimbleness of a dancer. Its tail fluffed like a plume. It leapt from oak to beech, pausing to peer down with bright, curious eyes. In its mouth, it carried an acorn, which it carefully wedged into a nook before scurrying off to find another. This ritual had gone on all morning and would continue until evening, a cycle as old as the trees themselves. The soundscape of the forest was soft but layered. Leaves rustled under the smallest touch of wind. Birds called from hidden perches, their songs echoing between trunks. Somewhere in the distance, a woodpecker tapped in a steady, patient rhythm, punctuating the green silence with its staccato song. Every now and then, the soft flutter of wings marked the passing of a butterfly or moth, though sometimes a heavier rustle announced the flight of a larger bird, perhaps an owl waking early from its daylight rest. Near a clearing where sunlight spilled like liquid gold, a family of deer grazed quietly. Their ears flicked constantly, attuned to every twig snap and distant call, but they moved with the grace of creatures that had learned to live with caution. A fawn bent its head to nibble a patch of clover, while its mother watched from a few paces away, her large, dark eyes soft but alert. When a wood pigeon flapped noisily from a nearby branch, the fawn jerked its head up, frozen. The mother flicked her tail, signaling calm, and the small one returned to its meal. In the shadows of a nearby tree, a hedgehog snuffled through the leaves. Its little nose twitched as it hunted for insects, each sniff accompanied by the faint rustle of dry foliage. When it found a beetle, it paused, nudged it with a cautious nose, and then snapped it up with satisfaction before continuing on its slow, deliberate patrol. The canopy above was alive with creatures the forest floor rarely saw. Tiny birds flitted from branch to branch, chasing invisible insects in playful loops. A jay, resplendent in its blue and white feathers, hopped along a branch to examine a shiny pebble it had found. Crows called from high perches, their voices carrying far and low, as if announcing their presence to the entire kingdom. In the far distance, a fox moved like a shadow between the trees. It was neither in a hurry nor fully at rest, pausing now and then to sniff the air, its sharp senses reading the invisible script of the forest. A squirrel scolded it from above with a rapid series of chattering sounds, but the fox only flicked an ear and kept moving, uninterested in mischief for now. As the sun moved lower in the sky, the light began to change. Afternoon light in the forest was golden and gentle, spilling across leaves and turning spiderwebs into threads of fire. Dust motes danced in the air, caught in these shafts of sunlight, creating an illusion of tiny glowing spirits floating between the trees. The forest floor warmed in spots, inviting small creatures to rest. A group of lizards emerged to sun themselves on a patch of stone. Their scales glimmered faintly, blending into the dappled light and shadow, making them nearly invisible to any predator passing by. They remained still for long minutes, absorbing the heat, until the sound of a falling pine cone startled them into a sudden scatter, each one vanishing beneath the cover of leaves. From a hollow oak, the soft face of a tawny owl appeared. It blinked slowly, adjusting to the brightness of the day. Though it was not yet evening, the owl liked to observe, to know what moved in its forest before night fell. Its golden eyes scanned the understory, watching a mouse skitter beneath a log and a group of ants lifting a crumb far larger than themselves. Satisfied, it tucked itself back into shadow, a quiet guardian of the woods. Afternoon in the forest was a time of balance. Life moved neither fast nor slow, but with intention. Every creature, every tree, every stone played its part in the quiet harmony that made the forest eternal. When a breeze rolled through, the treetops swayed like the surface of a green sea, whispering secrets that only the wind could carry. Somewhere deep among the trees, a stream gurgled over stones, connecting the forest to the wider kingdom of water and meadow. Deer often drank there, foxes left careful prints in the mud, and dragonflies hovered in flashes of color over the moving water. The stream sang to itself, the sound rising and falling as it traveled over roots and fallen branches, blending into the wider forest chorus. By the time the sun began its slow descent, the forest glowed in a final burst of warmth. Shafts of orange and amber turned the trunks into columns of fire, and the air thickened with the perfume of pine and earth. Some creatures began to stir in preparation for night. The first bats stretched their wings, and the owl opened its eyes again, this time ready to hunt. For now, though, the forest remained the heart of the animal kingdom's peace, its pulse steady, its song unbroken. Afternoon here was not just a time of day, it was a living, breathing moment in a world where life moved gently and without fear. Chapter 5. Twilight in the Savannah. The sun drifted lower over the horizon, turning the wide sky above the savannah into a canvas of molten gold. It was the kind of light that seemed to warm not just the skin, but the soul itself, softening the edges of everything it touched. Grass stretched as far as the eye could see, bending in a gentle evening breeze. Each blade glimmered with the day's last rays, as if the earth itself were glowing in gratitude for another completed day. The savannah was a place of space and silence, yet alive with a symphony of soft sounds. Crickets began their nightly songs, one after another, until the air hummed with their overlapping music. The distant call of a mourning dove floated through the golden haze. Somewhere far off, the deep, resonant rumble of an elephant rolled across the plains, low and steady like a heartbeat. On a small rise above the grasslands, a pride of lions stirred. They had spent most of the day in the shade of a broad acacia tree, sprawled in the lazy posture of creatures who knew no fear. Now, as twilight painted the land, they came to life. A lioness stretched first, arching her back, her golden coat blending perfectly into the warm colors of the fading day. Her cubs tumbled around her, clumsy but fearless, biting at her tail and pawing at one another in playful skirmishes. The male lion, with his thick mane catching the last rays of the sun, lifted his head. His amber eyes scanned the horizon, taking in the movements of the savannah. A herd of zebras grazed in the distance, black and white stripes like moving brushstrokes across the golden field. Farther still, wildebeests clustered near a shallow waterhole, their tails flicking at the evening gnats. Life on the savannah followed the rhythm of day and night, and twilight was the bridge between them. Diurnal creatures began to retreat, seeking shelter in burrows, trees, or tall grass, while nocturnal hunters woke to the cooling air. The lions yawned, revealing long teeth in a gesture that was more languid than threatening. For now, the world was at ease. A pair of giraffes ambled along a path near the edge of the grassland. They moved slowly, necks swaying with each long, deliberate step, like tall ships gliding on an invisible tide. Their tongues reached for tender leaves at the top of a thorny acacia, stripping them with practiced ease. A calf followed closely behind one adult, its gaze wide and full of quiet curiosity. When a flock of guinea fowl burst from the grass with a flurry of wings, the calf startled, then leaned against its mother for reassurance. In a patch of shorter grass, meerkats stood on their hind legs, scanning the horizon with sharp little eyes. One squeaked, signaling the others, and they darted down into their burrows. It wasn't danger this time, just a shadow from a circling hawk gliding lazily overhead. The hawk soon veered away, its attention caught by the movement of a small rodent near a distant termite mound. Speaking of termites, the mounds scattered across the savannah seemed almost alive in the amber light, their peaks casting long shadows. At night, these structures would glow faintly with life as countless tiny architects worked within, but for now, they stood as silent monuments to patience and persistence. Not far from a shallow riverbed, hippos stirred in the dimming light. They had spent most of the hot day submerged, their round backs just breaking the surface of the water. Now, with the heat fading, they began their slow march onto land. Their heavy steps pressed deep into the mud as they made their way toward fresh patches of grass. Small birds, fearless and opportunistic, landed on their backs, hitching a ride and picking off tiny insects. As the sky shifted from gold to lavender and rose, the savannah's magic deepened. Fireflies began to appear, their gentle pulses of light echoing the stars that were just beginning to emerge overhead. The first evening breeze carried the scent of warm earth, dry grass, and the faint sweetness of flowering shrubs. A herd of elephants appeared on the horizon, their silhouettes enormous and majestic against the twilight. They walked with a slow, unhurried grace, the youngest calves keeping close to the adults' legs. When they reached a patch of soft soil, one of the older elephants paused to dust itself, lifting trunkfuls of dirt and flinging it across its broad back in a lazy, practiced motion. Tiny golden clouds rose around it, catching the last glow of the sun. The evening chorus swelled as darkness approached. Frogs croaked from the edges of waterholes. Nightjars called with their soft, eerie notes. The occasional distant roar of a lion echoed across the grasslands, rolling like thunder over the earth. It was both a warning and a song of belonging, reminding every creature that the king of the savannah was awake. Above it all, the sky transformed into a masterpiece. Stars appeared like pinpricks in velvet, growing brighter with each passing minute. A crescent moon rose over the horizon, casting a pale silver glow across the sweeping plains. The grass caught the moonlight and seemed to shimmer, as if the savannah had slipped on a new, quieter coat for the night. Beneath this sky, the animal kingdom of the savannah lived in a kind of gentle tension. Predators moved more freely now, their paws silent on the soft earth. Prey animals remained alert, ears twitching at every whisper of wind or rustle of grass. Yet there was also peace, a rhythm that all creatures knew and respected. Life here was both fragile and eternal, a dance that repeated each evening under the same endless sky. As the last streaks of sun disappeared and the savannah became a world of soft shadows and silver light, a hushed stillness settled over the land. It was the kind of calm that made the heart slow and the mind drift, a reminder that night is not an end, but a pause, a quiet breath in the eternal song of the animal kingdom. Chapter 6. Night in the Animal Kingdom. Night fell slowly, like a soft blanket drawn over the world. Across the animal kingdom, the light of the sun surrendered to the cool silver of the moon. Shadows stretched and merged until the shapes of the day became soft and indistinct. The world exhaled, and with it came the quiet magic that only night could bring. The sky above was a cathedral of stars. They shimmered like diamonds scattered across deep velvet, some steady, some twinkling faintly as if whispering secrets to the earth below. The moon, pale and serene, rose above the horizon, bathing the land in gentle silver light. Under its watch, the forest, the savannah, and the rivers seemed to transform into a dreamlike realm where time slowed and sound softened. In the forest, the canopy turned into a dark lacework against the night sky. Only the occasional shaft of moonlight reached the ground, painting pale patches on the moss and fallen leaves. Owls awakened in the hollows of trees, their golden eyes gleaming as they blinked away the last remnants of sleep. They stretched their wings silently, moving into the night without a whisper. A tawny owl drifted between branches, gliding as if carried by the night itself. Below, the forest floor came alive with subtle movements. A hedgehog shuffled among the leaves, snuffling softly as it searched for small insects. Mice ventured from their hidden burrows, quick and cautious, pausing at every faint rustle. Far above, the bats emerged from cracks and crevices, flitting like shadows across the moonlight. Their wings made no sound, only a faint whisper of air as they chased the first moths of the night. The river that threaded through the forest reflected the moon, turning its surface into liquid silver. Frogs sang along its banks, their voices rising in a chorus that echoed softly under the trees. The water carried scents and sounds, the faint trickle of a small waterfall, the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface, the rustle of reeds as a heron adjusted its stance in the shallows. Out on the savannah, night came differently. There were fewer trees to catch the light, so the grasslands became an open ocean of shadow and starlight. The air cooled, carrying the scent of dry grass and distant waterholes. Fireflies began their dance, tiny lanterns flickering in the darkness. In this open space, the animals of the night took the stage. Lions padded silently through the grass, their paws soft against the earth. Their golden eyes glimmered faintly, catching reflections of the moon as they moved with the effortless confidence of predators. The pride moved together, a fluid rhythm of muscle and purpose, though not every step meant a hunt. Sometimes they paused simply to listen, to the call of a nightjar, the rustle of a breeze through the savannah, the world breathing in the dark. A herd of elephants stood quietly near a waterhole, their massive shapes ghost-like in the moonlight. They drank in slow, thoughtful motions, the sound of water echoing softly. Calves nestled against their mothers, secure under the watchful eyes of the matriarchs. Every so often, an elephant would lift its trunk to the sky, tasting the night air, reading the scents written on the wind. Further away, hyenas stirred, their calls breaking the deep stillness. Their laughter-like cries echoed across the plains, a reminder that the night was alive with stories both playful and serious. In the tall grass, zebras huddled closer together, their ears flicking toward every sound. A gazelle lifted its head, perfectly still, every muscle tuned to the language of survival. In the mountains at the edge of the kingdom, night painted the world in shades of silver and blue. Small streams glimmered as they ran down the slopes, and the air carried the crisp scent of stone and snow. A snow leopard prowled silently, her white coat almost invisible against the moonlit rocks. She paused to look over the valley, her ears catching the faintest stirrings below, before moving on with the patience of a shadow. The ocean, too, under the same night sky, belonged to the kingdom. Waves rolled in slow whispers against the shore, reflecting the stars in broken fragments. Nocturnal creatures emerged in the shallows. Tiny crabs scuttled across the wet sand, and bioluminescent plankton flickered like living stars in the water. In the deeper sea, whales drifted and sang, their songs long and haunting, carrying for miles through the quiet darkness. Night in the animal kingdom was not silent, but its sounds were softer, deeper, and slower than the songs of day. There was a rhythm to it, a sense that life had turned inward. Day was for movement and light. Night was for listening, for breathing, for dreams. Across the entire kingdom, sleep came in waves. Some creatures curled into burrows or nests, tucking heads under wings or tails around bodies. Some, like the lions and owls, thrived in the silver world of the moon. And some, like the elephants under the stars, seemed to do both, half awake, half dreaming, moving through the night like memories given shape. The moon rose higher, and the stars multiplied until the sky was a vast, glittering sea. A cool wind drifted through the forest, over the savannah, and across the mountains, connecting every corner of the kingdom. It carried the scent of earth, water, grass, and distant flowers. It carried the whispers of night, a song without words that every creature somehow understood. The world slowed. Hearts slowed. The animal kingdom slept, watched over by the soft light of the night sky. Chapter 8. A Day of Harmony in the Animal Kingdom. The sun rose higher, climbing slowly into a sky of soft blue. Morning mist faded, and the world glimmered with fresh light. Across the animal kingdom, the day unfurled like a calm river, moving gently from one moment to the next. It was not a day of danger or storms, but a day where life moved in harmony, each creature playing its part in the great, quiet symphony of nature. In the forest, the canopy rustled in the soft breeze. Sunbeams pierced through leaves, creating patches of gold on the mossy floor. Tiny insects floated in the warm shafts of light, drifting lazily like dust motes in a sunlit room. A family of deer grazed near a clearing, their ears twitching at every faint sound. The fawn, still young and full of wonder, sniffed at a cluster of wildflowers, its small nose twitching as it inhaled the sweet, green scent. From above, a woodpecker tapped against the trunk of an old oak, the rhythmic knocking echoing softly through the woods. Nearby, a family of rabbits emerged from a thicket to nibble at tender shoots, their soft fur blending with the dapples of light and shadow. Overhead, the birds filled the air with song. Warblers flitted between branches, their wings catching the sun as they moved from twig to twig. A pair of blue jays chased each other playfully, their bright feathers flashing like jewels against the greenery. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of a sparrow, the crackle of a twig, layered into the tranquil music of the forest day. In a nearby river, sunlight danced on the ripples. Fish glided beneath the surface, flashing silver when they turned. A kingfisher, perched on a branch, watched with still patience before diving in a splash of blue and orange. It rose moments later with a small fish wriggling in its beak, then flew to a quiet perch to enjoy its meal. By the water's edge, turtles basked on smooth stones, unmoving except for the occasional slow blink. Dragonflies skimmed the surface, their wings like shards of glass catching the sun. A soft breeze carried the scent of fresh water, wildflowers, and damp earth, a perfume only the forest could make. Out on the savannah, the harmony of the day took a different form. The sun bathed the tall golden grasses in warmth. Herds moved slowly across the plain, grazing in quiet companionship. Zebras stood side by side, heads down, occasionally flicking their tails to swat away a fly. Giraffes bent their long necks to strip tender leaves from acacias, their movements slow and deliberate, almost ceremonial. A herd of wildebeest trudged steadily toward a watering hole, their hooves stirring up soft dust that drifted behind them like a veil. The elephants, as always, moved with calm authority. A matriarch led her family along a familiar path, stopping where the ground was softest and water lay just beneath the surface. Her trunk dug into the soil and lifted wet clumps to drink from, sharing the cool refreshment with the younger elephants. Calves splashed joyfully in a shallow pool, spraying each other with their trunks as the adults rumbled softly in approval. Predators, too, were part of this peaceful day, but even they seemed to move in rhythm with the sun. A lion pride lay sprawled under the shade of an acacia tree, bellies full from a successful hunt in the early morning. The cubs napped in warm clusters, twitching their tails in dreams, while the lionesses rested with their heads on their paws. Only the male lion occasionally lifted his great maner to catch the breeze, his golden eyes scanning the horizon with quiet watchfulness. The mountains, meanwhile, enjoyed their own slower rhythm. High above, an eagle soared in lazy spirals, scanning the rocks and valleys below. Small streams burbled as the snow melted into cold, clear water. In the valleys, marmots sunned themselves on warm rocks, occasionally darting into burrows at the shadow of a passing cloud. Even the ocean shared in the day's gentle harmony. Its waves rolled in soft, steady breaths, glinting under the sun. Sea lions dozed on sun-warmed rocks, while seabirds rode the currents of wind effortlessly. Beneath the water, schools of fish moved like shimmering ribbons, weaving together and apart in perfect unity. The air was full of life but free of haste. Every movement, every sound seemed to belong. Leaves rustled in conversation with the wind. Water trickled and sang in streams and rivers. Animals grazed, stretched, splashed, or simply rested, each fulfilling its role in a timeless pattern of life. As the day drifted toward afternoon, the light softened. The sun painted the world in warmer tones, and shadows grew longer. Many animals sought shade or water, slowing their movements in the warmth. Yet the peace of the day never broke. The animal kingdom lived as one, every breath, step, wing beat, and ripple weaving into the same quiet story. It was a story older than memory, a day of simple living and soft rhythms, the kind of day that reminded the earth to keep turning, the rivers to keep flowing, and the wind to keep whispering through the grass. The world was complete in its harmony, and for that long golden day, nothing else was needed. Chapter 9. Evening falls and the kingdom prepares for rest. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the world in shades of amber and rose. It had been a gentle day, full of soft winds and unhurried movements, and now the earth seemed to sigh as the evening arrived, wrapping everything in the promise of rest. In the forest, the first signs of evening stirred among the trees. The long shafts of sunlight, now golden and mellow, slipped through the leaves at an angle, creating stretched shadows that crept silently across the ground. Birds sang their last songs of the day, short and sweet, as if bidding the light farewell. A family of deer moved toward a quiet glade, the fawn sticking close to its mother. Its small hooves pressed softly into the damp earth, leaving delicate prints behind. The forest had a different voice now, quieter, slower, more thoughtful. The buzzing of daytime insects gave way to the soft trill of crickets warming up for their nighttime concert. By the river, the air cooled slightly, and the water took on the colors of the sky, pink, orange, and finally a dusky violet. A beaver paddled across the surface, ripples trailing behind it like ribbons. It disappeared into the mouth of its lodge, leaving the river calm once more. Overhead, a bat swooped for the first time, testing its wings as the sun dipped lower. The savannah shifted as evening approached. The wide, golden land that had glowed under the sun now began to soften into muted browns and soft purples. Herds that had spent the day grazing slowly drifted toward their resting places. Zebras huddled together for safety, their black and white stripes blending into a protective blur in the dim light. Giraffes chose the safety of open ground, where their long necks could spot any movement in the twilight. At a watering hole, The reflections of animals danced on the still surface. Elephants drank their fill one last time, spraying each other with playful bursts of water. The calves, now sleepy from the long day, leaned against their mothers, swaying gently before lowering themselves to rest in the soft dust. Farther away, the lion pride stirred with the coming night. They had slept through the heat of the day, but now, with the cooler air, they stretched and yawned. Cubs bounced in brief bursts of energy, pouring at tails and ears, before their mother's gentle nudges reminded them to stay close. The male lion lifted his great head, Manair catching the last sunbeams like a crown of fire, and released a long, rumbling call that rolled across the grasslands. It was both a song of territory and a hymn of evening, reminding every ear that the king of the savannah was awake. High in the mountains, the light changed even faster. Peaks glowed like embers for a few fleeting minutes, then sank into shadow. The crisp air carried the distant cry of an eagle returning to its roost. In rocky valleys below, small creatures hurried to their dens. Marmots, peakers, and mountain hares disappeared into crevices as the first hints of chill brushed the air. Along the shore, the ocean mirrored the sky's transformation. Waves turned from bright blue to deep indigo, and the horizon melted into a haze of orange and violet. Seagulls returned to their roosts on the cliffs, their cries softening as the wind cooled. On the sand, tiny crabs emerged from their burrows to explore the beach under the softer light, their delicate legs moving like shadows over the wet grains. The first stars appeared, shy and scattered, above the quieting world. The animals sensed the shift and responded in the only way they knew, by slowing down, settling in, and breathing with the rhythm of the earth. The forest whispered. The savannah exhaled. The ocean hummed softly to itself. Even the wind seemed to carry a lullaby, brushing through grass and branches with the gentlest voice. Night creatures prepared to take over their silent patrols, and day creatures curled into nests, burrows, and safe clearings. As darkness deepened, the moon rose, silver and serene, casting its light across rivers and plains. The world was calm, united in rest, each heartbeat part of the great living rhythm that would continue until dawn returned. And so, under the soft veil of night, the animal kingdom closed its eyes. Life continued, but more slowly, more softly, like a dream that covered the entire earth. Chapter 10: Night Whispers and the Secret Life of the Animal Kingdom. The sun had long disappeared, and the world belonged to the night. A silver moon drifted high, accompanied by countless stars that glittered like shards of ice scattered across an endless black velvet sky. The air was cooler now, gentle and still, carrying scents that only appeared when the heat of day had passed: damp soil, fresh leaves, and the faint sweetness of flowers that opened only in darkness. The animal kingdom, far from being asleep entirely, shifted into its secret rhythm of night. Some creatures tucked themselves away in warm nests and burrows, while others emerged, their eyes gleaming under the moonlight, ready to live the hours the sun left behind. In the forest, darkness deepened under the canopy. The wind had quieted to a soft sigh, and every rustle seemed louder, more mysterious. Tiny glowing fireflies floated like wandering stars among the trees, their gentle pulses forming a language only they seemed to understand. A barn owl glided silently between the trunks, wings spread wide, hunting without a sound. Its pale face, round and watchful, turned at the faintest movement in the undergrowth. Somewhere below, a mouse scurried, tiny feet brushing the leaves. It paused, whiskers trembling, before darting into the safety of a hollow log, unaware that its quick escape had saved it for another night. Further along the forest floor, a family of foxes emerged from their den. The kits, full of energy after sleeping the day away, tumbled over each other playfully. Their mother watched with patient eyes before leading them on a cautious patrol under the trees. Every step was soft, every movement careful, for the forest at night belonged to those who could move unseen. The river, dark and reflective, became a mirror of the stars. A soft mist rose from the surface, drifting like ghosts through the reeds. Frogs croaked in gentle rhythm, a night song that mingled with the distant chirping of crickets. Occasionally, a fish splashed, sending circles across the silver water, and an otter slipped through the ripples, its sleek form vanishing with barely a sound. Out on the savannah, the transformation of night was even more profound. The golden grasses, which had shimmered in the sunlight, now lay under a blanket of indigo and silver. Shadows stretched long and soft, and the air carried the subtle tension of a land where the night belonged to hunters. The lion pride, quiet and drowsy at sunset, now moved with renewed purpose. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, and their bodies were silent against the ground. A distant zebra whinnied softly, ears alert, as the herd clustered tighter together, instinct warning them of the night's invisible dangers. A leopard, solitary and patient, perched on the branch of a wide acacia. Its spotted coat was almost invisible against the shadows of the leaves. With the stillness of stone, it watched the land below, waiting for the perfect moment to descend. Farther off, the hyenas began their wandering. Their calls, odd, rising whoops, carried over the plains, a reminder that even in the most silent night, life and movement continued. Yet this was not a night of fear, only of balance, where every creature played its part in the cycle of life. In the mountains, night had a sharper edge. The cold settled quickly, making the rocks and slopes gleam under the frost of moonlight. Owls patrolled the ridges, while small mammals stayed hidden in their burrows, listening to the occasional rustle of a lynx or the distant echo of a wolf's howl. The sound rolled down the valleys like a song of ancient memory, a voice of the wild calling to no one and everyone at once. At the ocean's edge, night brought a different magic. The waves glowed faintly in patches where bioluminescent plankton responded to movement, turning each splash into a burst of blue light. Tiny crabs and sandpipers explored the moonlit beach, leaving delicate trails that the next tide would erase. Out at sea, dolphins moved in silent arcs beneath the surface, their shapes visible only when they broke the water in silver sprays. The world spoke in whispers at night. Leaves brushed softly in the breeze. Water trickled and lapped. Wings beat in near silence, and pores pressed gently into soil and sand. There was no rush, no noise, no hurry, only the gentle continuation of life, bathed in starlight. Somewhere in the forest, a family of deer lay together in a small clearing. The fawn rested its head against its mother, her warm body a shield against the night's cool breath. Above them, the moon drifted slowly, and the stars traced their invisible paths across the heavens. The night belonged to dreams, both for creatures asleep and those still moving in the dark. In the hidden burrows, under leaves, in the bends of rivers and the dips of valleys, the animal kingdom rested, breathed, and existed in perfect harmony with the turning earth. And as the night deepened, the world seemed to hum with a gentle lullaby, the song of life continuing in the quietest hours. Chapter 11. Dreams of the Animal Kingdom. Night had fully claimed the earth. The moon floated high, a pale guardian among the countless stars, watching over the sleeping world. Shadows lay soft upon the land, stretching and folding into the contours of the forests, rivers, and plains. The animal kingdom, now fully surrendered to the rhythm of night, entered its dreaming hours. Not every creature slept at the same time, yet the world had a hush to it, a quiet that was deeper than silence, the quiet of life breathing together. In the forest, the last whispers of movement slowed. The family of deer, which had settled in a clearing, now lay completely still, eyes closed, chests rising and falling in soft rhythm. The fawn twitched its ears as if listening to music only it could hear. Inside its small dreaming mind, the day replayed as a series of warm sunbeams and bounding leaps. In its dream, the grass was endless, the flowers brighter, and the air smelled of sweetness. High in the branches, the owls continued their patient watch, but even they paused at times, their heads drooping slightly, eyes half-lidded, caught between wakefulness and drifting thought. Squirrels curled in the hollows of trees, tails wrapped around their bodies like blankets. Their tiny paws flexed in sleep, perhaps dreaming of leaping from branch to branch, weightless and free. Along the river, the water whispered lullabies. The ripples reflected the moon like broken silver, and the banks were alive with quiet dreams. A beaver, exhausted after a day of careful work, slept inside its wooden lodge. Perhaps in its dream it shaped an endless, perfect dam, a castle of sticks that held the whole river in a calm embrace. Frogs paused their songs one by one, and in the stillness, the hum of crickets became the heartbeat of the night. A heron, standing in shallow water, tucked its head under a wing, drifting into a half-sleep where the gentle lapping of the current became a song. On the savannah, the world of dreams stretched as far as the horizon. Elephants stood in a loose circle, some sleeping standing up, others lying carefully on the warm ground. Calves snuggled close to their mothers, tiny trunks occasionally curling in unconscious mimicry of their day's play. If elephants dream, and it is said they do, then perhaps they dreamed of long journeys, of splashing in cool rivers, and of walking through tall grass with the sun on their backs. The lion pride, full-bellied and content, was deep in slumber. Cubs twitched their paws, chasing phantom prey in their sleep, while the great lionesses breathed slowly, the rhythm of their lungs matching the soft winds over the grass. Even the mighty male lion, the king of the plains, rested his head on his paws, his manner stirring gently with the night breeze. In his dream, he perhaps walked his territory endlessly, the grass parting before him, his pride safe and strong. Above the plains, bats wheeled and dipped, some finally roosting after their night hunt. Their dreams were the memory of flight, of tracing invisible paths through the sky, always knowing where home was in the dark. In the mountains, sleep carried its own silence. Marmots nestled in deep burrows, warm against the night's chill. Owls and lynxes, the silent hunters, eventually retreated to rocky dens and tree hollows. In their dreams, they moved without sound, leaping from shadow to shadow, lords and guardians of their high, starry kingdom. By the ocean, the song of waves became the lullaby of the world. Sea lions slept in tangled groups on the rocks, their soft snores blending with the splash of water. Seabirds, heads tucked under wings, rested along cliffs, the rhythm of tides rocking them into deeper dreams. Beneath the water's surface, the dreaming continued. Schools of fish slowed their movements, swaying gently with the current, as if they too had surrendered to the calm of the night. In the deep, mysterious blue, dolphins rested one half of their brain at a time, floating close to the surface, dreaming perhaps of leaping under the sun or chasing playful companions through an endless ocean. The animal kingdom dreamed together, though each dream was different. Some were of running, flying, or swimming. Others were of safety, food, and family. Yet in all dreams, there was the same soft sense of belonging to the world, a gentle reminder that every creature had a place, every heartbeat was part of the great, breathing earth. Above it all, the moon watched, and the stars listened. The night was their canvas, and the dreams of animals were the brushstrokes, painting stories no human could see but all could feel if they listened to the quiet long enough. And so, through the deepest part of the night, the animal kingdom rested, wrapped in the embrace of sleep and the music of nature's eternal rhythm. Chapter 12. Dawn returns to the animal kingdom. The night was at its deepest, the world wrapped in the velvet silence of dreams, when the first hint of light began to stir on the horizon. It was not sudden, but soft and slow, like a painter brushing the edge of the earth with the faintest color. The moon, having watched over the animal kingdom all night, now started its quiet descent, making way for the return of the sun. Far to the east, the sky shifted from deep indigo to a misty lavender, then to the palest blue, A single star winked out, then another, until the night slowly surrendered to the gentle arrival of dawn. In the forest, this change was felt first by the birds. A single robin sang a tentative note from a branch still draped in shadow. Then a blackbird joined in, its melody rising clear and strong. Soon, the chorus grew, spilling through the trees like golden light, each call a celebration that the world had turned again, that life had endured another night. The deer family, nestled in their clearing, stirred at the sound. A fawn blinked in the early light, ears twitching at the morning songs. Dew clung to the grass, glittering like a scatter of diamonds in the new sun's gentle rays. The forest smelled fresh, a blend of damp earth, leaves, and the faint perfume of morning blossoms. In the river, mist curled off the surface, rising like smoke in the cool air. A heron, shaking off sleep, lifted its wings in slow, elegant arcs, gliding low over the water. Fish stirred beneath the surface, catching the first slivers of light that slipped through the rippling currents. The beaver, well rested, emerged from its lodge to inspect the dam, tiny droplets sparkling on its fur. On the savannah, dawn came like a soft golden flood spilling across the endless grass. The sky burned with hues of rose and amber, and the last whispers of night melted away. Elephants awoke with gentle rumbles, stretching trunks toward the new sun. Calves wobbled to their feet, eager to start another day of exploring and following their mothers. A lioness, her coat bathed in early light, yawned and rose, shaking dust from her fur. Her cubs tumbled sleepily after her, tails flicking in excitement. The male lion, perched on a small rise, faced the sun as if acknowledging the kingdom he watched over through the night. Far above, flocks of birds took to the air, their wings catching the sunlight, turning the sky into a living, shifting pattern of movement. Giraffes, silhouetted against the horizon, began their slow walk toward the acacia trees, while zebras shook the dew from their striped coats and trotted to fresher grazing spots. In the mountains, dawn was a sudden spark. Snowy peaks caught fire with golden light, and the cold night air shimmered with the first warmth of day. Eagles spread their wings and rose into the sky, catching thermals as they searched for the first signs of life below. Tiny peakers peeked from rocky crevices, sniffing the morning air, while marmots sat up, blinking against the light. By the ocean, the night tide receded, leaving glistening sand and tiny pools that mirrored the rising sun. Seabirds cried softly as they took flight, swooping over the gentle surf. Sea lions stretched lazily on sun-warmed rocks, and crabs scuttled back toward the safety of their burrows as the world grew bright. The world was waking, and with it, the animal kingdom began its day anew. Every creature, from the smallest ant lifting a fragment of leaf to the tallest giraffe reaching for tender morning shoots, moved in harmony with the returning light. The cycle had turned once again, from the calm of night, through the mystery of dreams, to the promise of another day. The forest glowed, the river sparkled, the savannah breathed warmth, and the ocean shimmered under the first full embrace of morning. And though the night would come again, bringing its lullabies and shadows, dawn reminded the world that every ending becomes a beginning, and that life, in all its forms, rises to greet the light. Chapter 13. The Great Morning Journey of the Animal Kingdom. The sun was now fully awake, stretching its golden light across the land, painting everything it touched in warm tones of honey and amber. The air held a gentle freshness, the kind that exists only in the earliest hours, before the day becomes busy and the heat of noon arrives. The animal kingdom stirred with purpose, each creature beginning its morning journey. This was the time for seeking food, exploring territory, and greeting the day with quiet, instinctive rituals. The forest path. In the forest, a soft haze of morning light drifted through the canopy, catching in the leaves and sparkling on beads of dew. Every branch and fern seemed alive, shimmering in gentle stillness. A family of rabbits hopped cautiously from their burrow, noses twitching in the crisp air. They paused to sniff the ground, alert for danger, then began nibbling on tender shoots that glistened from the night's moisture. Sparrows and finches fluttered overhead, moving in small bursts between branches, their songs weaving into a lively but peaceful chorus. A fox, sleek and quiet, trotted along a narrow trail. It moved without hurry, pausing to listen to the distant chatter of the birds. Its journey was not urgent, only natural, a soft patrol of its home. From a branch above, a squirrel peered down, tail flicking in curiosity before leaping to the next tree, the forest its endless playground. Down by the stream, a family of otters began their morning play. The water was cold and clear, and their smooth bodies cut through it with ease. They rolled and splashed, sending droplets sparkling like gems in the sunlight. A kingfisher, vibrant and patient, watched from a low branch, ready to dive for its breakfast with a flash of blue and orange. The savannah stroll. Out on the savannah, the golden grasses swayed with a soft morning breeze. This was the hour when the land felt gentle, before the heat pressed down and the world became a shimmer of light and shadow. A herd of zebras moved slowly toward a watering hole, their stripes dazzling against the sunlit plains. Beside them, wildebeest trailed in steady rhythm, their hooves stirring soft dust that drifted behind like a morning veil. Near the edge of the water, giraffes bent their long necks to drink, pausing to lift their heads and gaze across the horizon. The world looked endless from where they stood, a rolling sea of grass and acacia trees under the brightening sky. Elephants approached in their steady, purposeful way. The matriarch led the herd, ears fanning the air, trunks sweeping the ground for familiar scents. The calves trotted close to their mothers, occasionally pausing to explore a butterfly or inspect a flower along the path. When they reached the water, some elephants drank, while others sprayed themselves, the sunlight catching every droplet like liquid gold. Above, flocks of birds filled the sky, each taking part in their own great morning journey. Storks and ibises glided low over the wetlands, while hawks circled higher, their keen eyes searching for the day's opportunities. The mountain awakening. High in the mountains, the morning was bright and sharp. The sun rose over peaks capped in white, turning snow and ice into a dazzling display of pink and gold. Mountain goats emerged from rocky ledges, moving with practiced ease along steep paths. A lynx, silent and solitary, stretched after a night of rest. It padded down to a cold stream for a drink, fur glistening in the clean light. Overhead, an eagle traced wide circles, its wings catching the first warm currents of the day. From this height, the world below looked endless and calm, a patchwork of forest, meadow, and shadowed valley. In the hidden meadows, butterflies rose with the sun, their wings painted in soft oranges and yellows. The hum of bees returned to the flowers, each one a tiny traveler in the morning's quiet journey. The ocean's morning path. By the sea, dawn brought sparkling waves and the scent of salt and seaweed. Sandpipers ran along the wet shore, darting between the foam and leaving delicate prints behind them. Sea lions, warmed by the rising sun, slid into the water, their smooth shapes catching flashes of silver as they dove. In the distance, a pod of dolphins began its daily travel, moving along the current in a graceful line. Every leap and arc through the air felt like a celebration of the new day. Beneath the surface, the hidden world of fish stirred in bright streams of color, reflecting the sun that now danced across the water. The ocean seemed alive with motion, yet at peace, carrying its countless lives in a gentle rhythm. Everywhere, the animal kingdom moved together, though unseen by one another. Each journey was its own story, yet all were connected by the turning of the earth and the warmth of the sun. The forest animals foraged among leaves and streams. The savanna herds drifted across golden plains. The mountain dwellers climbed and glided in clear air. The ocean life flowed in harmony with the tides. It was a great, unspoken morning migration, the pulse of life answering to the day. And though the sun would climb higher and the world would grow busier, this moment of morning calm, with its soft movements, bright light, and quiet purpose, was a treasure of the animal kingdom, repeated in every sunrise since time began. Chapter 13: The Great Morning Journey of the Animal Kingdom. The sun was now fully awake, stretching its golden light across the land, painting everything it touched in warm tones of honey and amber. The air held a gentle freshness, the kind that exists only in the earliest hours, before the day becomes busy and the heat of noon arrives. The animal kingdom stirred with purpose, each creature beginning its morning journey. This was the time for seeking food, exploring territory, and greeting the day with quiet, instinctive rituals. The forest path. In the forest, a soft haze of morning light drifted through the canopy, catching in the leaves and sparkling on beads of dew. Every branch and fern seemed alive, shimmering in gentle stillness. A family of rabbits hopped cautiously from their burrow, noses twitching in the crisp air. They paused to sniff the ground, alert for danger, then began nibbling on tender shoots that glistened from the night's moisture. Sparrows and finches fluttered overhead, moving in small bursts between branches, their songs weaving into a lively but peaceful chorus. A fox, sleek and quiet, trotted along a narrow trail. It moved without hurry, pausing to listen to the distant chatter of the birds. Its journey was not urgent, only natural, a soft patrol of its home. From a branch above, a squirrel peered down, tail flicking in curiosity before leaping to the next tree, the forest its endless playground. Down by the stream, a family of otters began their morning play. The water was cold and clear, and their smooth bodies cut through it with ease. They rolled and splashed, sending droplets sparkling like gems in the sunlight. A kingfisher, vibrant and patient, watched from a low branch, ready to dive for its breakfast with a flash of blue and orange. The savannah stroll. Out on the savannah, the golden grasses swayed with a soft morning breeze. This was the hour when the land felt gentle, before the heat pressed down and the world became a shimmer of light and shadow. A herd of zebras moved slowly toward a watering hole, their stripes dazzling against the sunlit plains. Beside them, wildebeest trailed in steady rhythm, their hooves stirring soft dust that drifted behind like a morning veil. Near the edge of the water, giraffes bent their long necks to drink, pausing to lift their heads and gaze across the horizon. The world looked endless from where they stood, a rolling sea of grass and acacia trees under the brightening sky. Elephants approached in their steady, purposeful way. The matriarch led the herd, ears fanning the air, trunk sweeping the ground for familiar scents. The calves trotted close to their mothers, occasionally pausing to explore a butterfly or inspect a flower along the path. When they reached the water, some elephants drank, while others sprayed themselves, the sunlight catching every droplet like liquid gold. Above, flocks of birds filled the sky, each taking part in their own great morning journey. Storks and ibises glided low over the wetlands, while hawks circled higher, their keen eyes searching for the day's opportunities. The mountain awakening. High in the mountains, the morning was bright and sharp. The sun rose over peaks capped in white, turning snow and ice into a dazzling display of pink and gold. Mountain goats emerged from rocky ledges, moving with practiced ease along steep paths. A lynx, silent and solitary, stretched after a night of rest. It padded down to a cold stream for a drink, fur glistening in the clean light. Overhead, an eagle traced wide circles, its wings catching the first warm currents of the day. From this height, the world below looked endless and calm, a patchwork of forest, meadow, and shadowed valley. In the hidden meadows, butterflies rose with the sun, their wings painted in soft oranges and yellows. The hum of bees returned to the flowers, each one a tiny traveler in the morning's quiet journey. The ocean's morning path. By the sea, dawn brought sparkling waves and the scent of salt and seaweed. Sandpipers ran along the wet shore, darting between the foam and leaving delicate prints behind them. Sea lions, warmed by the rising sun, slid into the water, their smooth shapes catching flashes of silver as they dove. In the distance, a part of dolphins began its daily travel, moving along the current in a graceful line. Every leap and arc through the air felt like a celebration of the new day. Beneath the surface, the hidden world of fish stirred in bright streams of color, reflecting the sun that now danced across the water. The ocean seemed alive with motion, yet at peace, carrying its countless lives in a gentle rhythm. Everywhere, the animal kingdom moved together, though unseen by one another. Each journey was its own story, yet all were connected by the turning of the earth and the warmth of the sun. The forest animals foraged among leaves and streams. The savanna herds drifted across golden plains. The mountain dwellers climbed and glided in clear air. The ocean life flowed in harmony with the tides. It was a great, unspoken morning migration, the pulse of life answering to the day. And though the sun would climb higher and the world would grow busier, this moment of morning calm, with its soft movements, bright light, and quiet purpose, was a treasure of the animal kingdom, repeated in every sunrise since time began. Chapter 17. The gentle arrival of night in the animal kingdom. The sun had fully dipped below the horizon, leaving behind only a soft afterglow. The world was caught in that precious in-between moment, where light and dark shared the sky. The air cooled, carrying with it the scents of earth, leaves, and water, sharper now than in the warm hours of the day. This was the hour of quiet transformation, when the animal kingdom shifted into night mode, and new voices joined the chorus of life. Forest whispers of night. In the forest, the change was most profound. The glowing greens and golds of the day had faded into deep shadow, broken only by stripes of twilight. A soft chorus of crickets began, their steady rhythm marking the heartbeat of the night. Frogs joined in, their calls echoing across ponds and marshy hollows, blending with the whisper of the wind through the trees. Owls opened their great golden eyes. From a high branch, a barn owl spread its silent wings and drifted into the night, moving as smoothly as a thought. Another owl answered in the distance with a low, soothing call, announcing that the forest was now in their care. Fireflies rose higher, tiny floating lanterns weaving patterns in the air. Beneath them, hedgehogs began their nightly search for food, sniffing among roots and leaves. A family of badgers, slow but purposeful, left their burrow to explore the cool earth under the cover of darkness. Even the trees seemed to exhale, their branches swaying lightly, as if nodding to the night. Savannah in starlight. The savannah experienced night as a grand opening of the sky. With no trees to hide the horizon, the first stars appeared like scattered diamonds, and the moon climbed high, bathing the grasslands in silver. Elephants, which had wandered toward water in the late day, now gathered at the riverbank. They drank slowly, their reflections long and rippling, while the young calves pressed close to their mothers, ready for sleep under the night sky. Farther away, a herd of zebras huddled together, their stripes almost invisible in the pale moonlight. Giraffes stood like sentinels, their heads rising above the tall grass, listening to the distant sounds of nocturnal life. The lions, who had stirred during the golden hour, now came fully alive. The females moved first, padding softly through the grass, their tails flicking in perfect rhythm. Their eyes gleamed in the starlight, and their movements were silent and confident, as if the night itself flowed through them. From far off came the distant roar of a male lion, deep and resonant. It rolled across the plains like a slow drumbeat, a reminder to all creatures that the night belonged to both peace and power. Mountains under the moon. High in the mountains, the arrival of night brought a crisp, clean chill. The last hues of sunset had faded, leaving the peaks outlined in silver under a bright, clear moon. The streams that had mirrored the sky's gold now caught the silver of the moon, turning the moving water into flowing light. Bats emerged from hidden caves, darting like shadows against the dim sky as they hunted tiny insects. Owls of the high crags called across the valleys, their voices carrying on the cold, clear air. A family of mountain goats settled on a safe ledge, their white coats glowing faintly in the moonlight. Below them, a red fox trotted along a rocky path, pausing now and then to sniff at the wind, aware that the night was both a time of opportunity and caution. Up here, the silence of night was vast, interrupted only by the gentle hush of wind and the occasional rustle of small creatures moving in shadow. The ocean's moonlit secret. By the ocean, the night was a living mirror of the stars. The moon floated high, and its reflection trembled in every ripple of the sea. Waves softened in the cool hours, their crashes turning to hushed sighs, like the ocean itself had grown sleepy. The tide pulled gently, leaving trails of silver foam along the sand. On the shore, ghost crabs emerged, their pale forms almost invisible as they scurried in and out of moonlit pools. Sandpipers moved with them, quick and light, their soft footsteps swallowed by the sound of the surf. Farther out, a pod of dolphins surfaced under the moon. Their sleek backs caught the silver light for a moment before disappearing again. In the distance, a whale exhaled, sending a misty cloud into the night air, which sparkled faintly before dissolving. Above the water, seabirds rested on the wind, and the occasional soft splash of a fish reminded the night that life in the ocean never truly sleeps. The kingdom's nighttime harmony. Across forest, savannah, mountain, and ocean, the animal kingdom had entered its night rhythm. Some creatures dreamed in safety, curled in nests, dens, or burrows. Some creatures moved softly in the dark, hunting or foraging under moon and stars. And some, like the wind, the water, and the night sky itself, simply watched and listened. The world felt slower, softer, and for any creature who paused to notice, night carried its own lullaby. The whisper of trees in the forest. The sigh of the grasslands under starlight. The hush of streams in the mountains. The pulse of the tide along the ocean shore. The gentle arrival of night was not the end of the day but a gift of peace, a chance for the animal kingdom to rest, renew, and dream beneath the endless sky. Chapter 18. The World of Dreams. The animal kingdom had now fully surrendered to night. The moon drifted high, a silent guardian of silver light, and the stars twinkled like tiny campfires scattered across an endless sky. This was the hour of deep rest, the moment when dreams began their quiet work, visiting every den, burrow, and nest. Across forest, savannah, mountains, and ocean, life slowed into a soft rhythm of breath and heartbeat, while the minds of creatures wandered into worlds of their own making. Forest dreams. In the forest, the deer and her fawn rested in the shelter of tall grass, their eyes closed, ears twitching gently. In the dream of the mother deer, the world was wide and safe, a meadow stretching farther than sight, full of gentle wind and endless clover. She could run without fear, her fawn leaping beside her, always safe in a sunlit dream. High in a tree hollow, a family of squirrels huddled together, tails wrapped like warm scarves. The youngest squirrel twitched in his sleep, lost in a dream of leaping, branch to branch, sky to sky, as though the whole forest was his playground. The owl, though awake in the physical world, had a moment of quiet meditation between flights. In some secret corner of its mind, it saw the forest in silver, where every mouse and leaf glowed, and flying felt like gliding through starlight itself. Even the tiny creatures dreamed. Fireflies, resting on cool leaves, pulsed faintly, as if their light followed a rhythm only they could see, flickering to the pattern of their own soft, private dreams. Savannah dreams. Under the vast African sky, the savannah had gone silent but for the whisper of wind and the occasional call of a night bird. The zebra herd slept in a loose circle, heads drooped, stripes blending into the darkness. In their dreams, they ran as one, hooves drumming across endless plains. But this time there was no chase, no fear, only speed and freedom, like wind come alive. The lion cubs, nestled against their mother's belly, twitched and squeaked in their sleep. They dreamed of play that had no danger, where butterflies were worthy opponents, and the tall golden grass was a kingdom of laughter. A lonely rhinoceros, dozing by a watering hole, seemed to smile in his sleep, lips moving faintly. In his dream, the waterhole was endless, cool and clear, surrounded by mud soft enough to roll in forever. Above the savannah, the night sky turned slowly, and it felt as though the stars themselves were watching the dreams below. Mountain dreams. High in the mountains, the chill of night wrapped the land, and dreams took a crystal clarity. A wolf pack slept in the shelter of a rocky overhang. Their breathing was steady, the youngest pups pressed close to their mother's fur. The alpha wolf, deep in sleep, dreamed of running through snow, his pores light as mist, his heart full of quiet pride. The mountain goats, safe on their ledges, dreamed in soft, silent ways, fresh grass underfoot, warm sun on fur, and the freedom of sure-footed leaps across impossible spaces. Even the streams seemed to dream, their soft trickle sounding like a lullaby, as though the water carried memories of rain and cloud into the land of night. Ocean dreams. Beneath the moonlit ocean, dreams swam as easily as fish. A sea turtle, resting on the sandy bottom, let herself drift into memory. In her dream, she swam in warm tropical currents, surrounded by endless coral gardens, and she felt as if she were as light as a leaf on the tide. The pod of dolphins, which had surfaced under the moon earlier, now drifted in slow, drifting sleep, one half of their brains awake to the ocean's rhythm, the other wandering into dreams of playful leaps and sunlit waters. A sleeping whale, deep below, exhaled a soft bubble trail, its massive body rocking with the gentle waves. In its dream, the ocean was golden and boundless, the songs of other whales carried forever, like voices of ancient friends. Even tiny fish in coral crevices found rest, imagining currents that carried them to faraway reefs, where the world was safe and endless. The lullaby of night. Everywhere, the animal kingdom shared one truth. Night was a blanket for the body and a canvas for the mind. Dreams turned hunger into feasts, fear into gentle play, loneliness into company, and ordinary places into endless adventures. Above all, the world of dreams reminded every creature, great or small, that rest was a journey of its own, a silent migration through imagination, carrying each being toward the next sunrise with a heart renewed. The forests whispered, the savannah breathed, the mountains glimmered under moon, and the oceans pulsed, all in perfect harmony, a sleeping world held in the arms of dreams. Chapter 19. The Midnight Symphony. The world had fallen fully into night, and for a brief moment, it felt as if time itself had slowed. The moon hung high, bright and steady, painting silver trails on leaves, grass, and water. It was midnight, and the animal kingdom had reached its deepest, most secret rhythm. This was the hour of the nocturnal ones, when the invisible chorus of night came alive. The forest's orchestra. In the forest, the daytime hush had transformed into a gentle, living concert. Crickets played their steady violin hum, creating the heartbeat of the night. Tree frogs added soft, bubbling notes, as if water itself had learned to sing. In the distance, a nightjar called, its melody haunting and sweet, floating between the trees. The owls were the soloists of this nocturnal symphony. From high branches, a great horned owl gave a low, resonant hoot, answered by the soft trill of a smaller screech owl nearby. Their voices overlapped like music written on air, each note perfectly timed with the rustle of leaves. Beneath the trees, hedgehogs and mice moved softly, their tiny footsteps adding faint percussion, while bats swooped overhead, their wings whispering like silk through the air. It was as though the forest had an orchestra of its own, and every creature knew its part in the music of midnight. The savannah's choir of shadows. Across the savannah, the night had a voice both larger and quieter. A lion's roar rolled through the tall grass, deep and powerful, like a drumbeat for the entire plain. It vibrated in the ground and in the hearts of every creature that heard it, a reminder of the night's wild harmony. In the distance, hyenas laughed softly, their calls rising and falling like flutes, playful yet echoing in the dark. The wind itself joined the symphony, brushing through the endless fields of grass, creating a low, hushed sound like soft applause from the earth. Above it all, night birds called to one another. Some sounded like whistles, others like soft wooden instruments, blending with the distant rumble of elephants shifting in their sleep or the occasional splash of a hippo returning to the water. The savannah at midnight was a choir of shadows, where sound traveled far and free, filling the vast, starlit silence with music older than memory. The mountains echo in harmony. In the mountains, midnight brought a clean, echoing quiet that turned every sound into music. The wind was the conductor here, moving through rocky passes and across snowy ridges, singing low and long. A solitary wolf, awake and watchful, lifted its head and howled to the moon. The sound traveled across valleys, bounced off cliffs, and returned in soft echoes, as if the mountain itself was singing back. Far below, an owl called from a pine tree, and the sound spiraled down the slope, mingling with the rush of a mountain stream. Even the stream's voice became part of the midnight symphony, water over stones creating a gentle, eternal song. The occasional clatter of a pebble dislodged by a nocturnal goat added a single, perfect note, before silence returned. Up here, the orchestra was sparse but profound, a minimalist music written by wind, water, and the rare voice of life. The ocean's softest song. On the shore, the ocean's music deepened under the midnight sky. The waves were the bass line, steady and strong, breaking in slow, soft rhythm. The wind over the water hummed along, low tone, a natural sea organ that played without pause. Close to shore, the occasional splash of a fish was a bright, plucked string, while ghost crabs scuttling across the sand whispered like brushes over a drum. Farther out, the breath of a surfacing whale joined the symphony, a deep exhale rising like a soft gong in the darkness. Above the ocean, night birds cried faintly, their voices echoing off the open water, until the sea and sky seemed to merge into one endless lullaby. The heartbeat of the night. Across the entire animal kingdom, the midnight symphony was alive but soothing. Every forest leaf, every blade of grass, every wave and stone seemed to listen and participate. It was music without audience, a song for no ears but the night itself, and yet it carried a profound peace, wrapping the sleeping world in calm. Those who were awake moved with purpose and grace. Those who slept drifted deeper into dreams. And the earth itself seemed to hum in contentment, as if night was its truest language,